Welcome to Marc My Words, a podcast that not only aims to inspire and teach the listener about entrepreneurship, it also aims to give my guests an opportunity to talk about their unique journey in entrepreneurship and life. So join me and my guests as we meet at the crossroads on Marc My Words. Today on Marc My Words, I have a guest from the land down under who has had a ton of experience as an entrepreneur, has endured a lot of ups and downs along the way, and has learned a ton. And as a result, they're taking all this knowledge and all these things that they've learned, and they are now the CEO of their own business again, actually CEO of Attergy, and is Perth's most trusted business leader, mentor on the inner game of your success. Got that right from Torrin Minutillo's, and hopefully I pronounced that right. We talked about it before. got, got that right from his LinkedIn profile. Founder of Attergy Coaching Systems, leadership partner, empowering business leaders to achieve with courage. And thank you for having the courage to be on Marc My Words. How you doing today, Torrin?
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the intro. And looking forward to it. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Very happy to have you here. And thank you for waking up early on your side of planet Earth to be here. Believe me, I really, really appreciate it. And I know it's not easy to get up early. I mean, you're talking to somebody who hates getting up before 7 a.m. So the fact that you're here at 7 a.m. your time, I commend you. So thank you for that. And
no problem at all.
So what I usually like to do to start off an episode, I like going into the Wayback Machine. And as I often tell everybody, I kind of like poking around on LinkedIn to see what I can learn. I'm not learning a whole lot in the Wayback Machine in that regard. So I'm going to just start and ask you if you ever envisioned being a business owner as you grew up, and B, if that, I'm guessing you probably did. I think most of us never envisioned that, but what exactly were you thinking about as you were growing up as far as what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a lot of us never end up in the pathway that we maybe have thought we'd originally set out to be, and life sometimes unfolds in front of you and you tend to go where the river stream takes you. But yeah, I think growing up, probably the only, on reflection, it was leadership sort of came natural to me a little bit, in that not necessarily from an alpha sort of leading of the pack, but more just self-selected, and people would select me to be, leaders of sporting teams and things as we're going through, school in my early years. But I think pretty much early into my working life, I soon got a taste or had an ambition to run my own business, and it's probably out of wanting to take control of my own destiny, I suppose, was really what the driving force was. And I didn't really know exactly what it was going to be. And I didn't go down the academic path. So I didn't go to sort of university or anything like that to sort of, set myself on a pathway of career. But yeah, in the early age, I set out on a entrepreneurial pathway, not knowing really where it was going to take me, and just sort of ambitious and wanting to learn. And as I said, I think the driving force on reflection was probably more just wanting to take control of my own destiny, which, a lot of people who go down the entrepreneurial pathway, that's the below them, what's driving them. So I think that was what I was thinking when I was growing up. But yeah, then if you've got leadership as something that you aspire to, or you enjoy doing, then that's, I think it holds you in good stead in trying to run an enterprise or whatever it may be. So yeah, so that was my initial thoughts going back way when, Mark, in the time machine, going back, it's a long time ago now, 30 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reading up on you, I noticed that you were even your own like video store rental owner at one point, and that's how far back we're going here. What was that like to own a video rental store back when that was like a hot thing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so it was. So that was my first business. I got into video rental library, as they used to call them back in the day. So that was 1989. So this is, you've got to remember, there was a life pre-mobile phone, internet, and instant communication. and I suppose at the time, being able to get video cassettes or movies for home entertainment, to be able to watch movies as of your choice in your own home was part of leading technology at the time. So yeah, that's when I first started. Owning a video rental business was good. I mean, I was only 20, I think 24 and a half thereabouts. So that was my first business, and I was just sort of cutting my teeth on how to understand how to service customers and clients, and it was a nice business because there wasn't too many problems. People who you interacted with were all looking to have fun and enjoy movies, and I became a bit of a movie buff through all that, so that was good, and I enjoyed all that. So yeah, it was an enjoyable business to start off with. In the end, we sort of ended up, myself and a partner ended up with 3 locations in a pretty quick space of time, and so that's where I really sort of got the taste of wanting to, be in business. And I realized that, yeah, I was in the right place and I was doing what I love doing. So, so that was a good start for me.
Were you a movie fan before you started this business, or was it just something that wound up happening?
Now, I was attracted more from the business side, necessarily being a movie buff. I did enjoy the movies, but I wasn't like, had to go and watch every latest movie that came out or would stand in line when they're first released or anything like that. But once you're involved in any business, it was important for me to keep a track of what was going on, what movies were being released on a month-to-month basis, which is how it used to roll then. So every month they'd have a new amount of releases, and you'd sort of buy what you thought was going to be, the favorites for the time, and you would stock your video library up accordingly. And each month it changed, so there was always new product and things. So that's another good thing, is that you're not dealing with the same product essentially each month. You got something new coming on, so that kept it fresh as well, which was good.
Yeah, and the times have changed so much. I mean, just thinking back to that time of going to the store and renting movies, it was just a totally different time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I envy the fact that you had the opportunity to do that as somebody who has been working in the entertainment industry for a long time. That sounds like a pretty cool business idea, but not something I would do today, obviously.
No.
But no, that's awesome. And I think before I go forward from there, you said you didn't go to university. What exactly were you doing between the end of school and that opportunity?
Yeah, well, just odd jobs, really. I was trying to find my way. And yeah, I was actually working in the travel industry for a while for a wholesale travel company here in Perth. And yeah, I drifted around in those circles a little bit, but I never really sort of, bedded down any particular long career, or I never really felt like that was going to be a long-term career for me. I was pretty itchy to get into business. I was just trying to find an opportunity to do that. That was, and at the time I wasn't driven by needing to make a lot of money. It was more just about getting some experience. As it turned out, in the short time, the video library industry was, pretty popular at the time. So it was a good income spinner. Problem was it was short-lived because, as we know, video libraries and technology came in. So within a space of 4 to 5 years, it was starting to become obvious that it wasn't going to be a sustainable business model. or certainly for what I wanted to do and where I was at. And as I progressed, other things became important in my life. I ended up getting married, having a couple of kids and mortgages and houses. And we got into that, where we all do, or most of us do, get into that period of chasing your life in front of you based on, other people that are around you. Whereas when I first started in my video library work, it was just me. I didn't only have to look after myself and make sure. So it was a good opportunity for me to really get stuck into that. So to answer your question, prior to the video libraries, didn't really have any other business. It was just more about trying to find my way and where I was going.
I always enjoy hearing when somebody says, I had like a ton of jobs or bounced around at that point in their life, because I did the same thing. And I think certain people in my life kind of viewed it as, why are you bouncing around so many jobs? Like, just stick to one job. And I think some of us just don't really have a good feel for where exactly we want to be. And I think in the long run, even though 99% of the jobs I took really don't factor into who and what I am today, I learned a ton from the journey and from taking on all different types of jobs, because I learned, oh, okay, I don't want to be a plumber. I'm not
Yeah.
somebody who belongs in construction. And I love that you laugh at that, because you're probably thinking, this guy is a plumber? Like, no way. And you're right.
Well,
You're absolutely right.
no, I think what I'm reflecting on is, so we won't go too fast, too forward, too quick, but where I'm at in my world now, and having studied a lot around human behavior, I can reflect back on those times and understand. I can now, in reflection, understand what was happening and potentially what was happening with you and a lot of people. Is that we get restless, we don't know, so we sort of move forward by default in that we figure out what we don't like versus what we really necessarily do like, and then eventually what you do like doing or where you sit bubbles up to the top, and then you find that out. And sometimes that could be a 20-year journey, not a 5-year journey. So I think it's more to do with human behavior, how you are trying to drive to get sort of stability in your life, control, autonomy, and around that, and that underneath that, your behaviors show up, and you might not necessarily be dealing with exactly what it is you want to get to. In other words, you're restless, you're not sure. And look, the other truth is, from a human life experience, is that when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you don't really have experience or understand what life's going to unfold in front of you. And a lot of people go down the academic path, and I know in the States it's we hear it a lot about, the rite of passage, go to college and eventually get a degree and then potentially go out into the world to get where you want. But I could imagine, like, if the US is anything like Australia, if you survey most 35, 40-year-olds, they're not doing what they set out to do when they went to college. They ended up in somewhere completely different.
Well, the funny thing is, so you are right. I was a bit restless, and I could have easily turned that into a 20-year journey myself, because I did kind of enjoy wearing all of those hats. But I think growing up, I think I knew what I wanted to do. I just think that there were some people around me, and one parent in particular, I'm not going to call them out, but one parent in particular was just like, why do you want to get like a television production degree? Just get an effing business degree. And he did use the F bomb in saying, get a business degree. And the only problem is, I have no mathematical ability. Now, I know you don't necessarily have to be mathematical to have your own business or to be in business, but I gotta imagine it helps. And I was not going to help anybody with the ability I had. So once I finally got to a point where I said, this, all these other things, this isn't what I want to do. I know what I want to do, and I set out to do it. Here we are 15, 20 years later, and I'm doing it. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
great.
you just don't
Well,
know.
I think it's good, like as I said, human behavior kicks in, and some people have the courage to push through and do what they really want to do and follow their own passion and pathway. And others feel like they've got to conform with what society and parents and influencers say they should do. A problem with that pathway, and it could lead to great careers. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a problem for everybody, but what happens is you wake up 10 to 15 years later, not happy with where you're at, and then you feel trapped because you haven't followed your own pathway. And I think this sort of where people, when they get to the middle part of their life, around the 40-odd mark plus, they start to maybe think, okay, am I doing really what I want to do? And that's when people get through even agitated again. And that by that stage, a whole lot of other things have evolved in their life, and they feel like they're not really doing what they want. And so that's actually part of the work I help people with, is to figure that stuff out and to get them on the right pathway, which is, but that's, it's a good reflection. It does start early on. And, I would encourage anybody who's in that age group is just to sort of try and follow your passion as much as you can and what you really want to be doing, because ultimately that's what will be driving you in, the years ahead. And then other people just fall in, as I said, you end up falling in the trap. You get a degree, you're not necessarily enjoying what you're doing, but it pays the bills, and you decide to stay on that pathway. And many people would like to break away from what they're doing, but then they're so set in their way and their conditioning that it's very difficult to do that. And you mentioned having significant people around you that influence you, and they impose their belief systems on what your belief systems are, and then that sets you down a pathway that you do wake up years down the track and go, am I really following my own belief systems, or am I following someone else's belief systems of what really makes me tick and what I want to do? So yeah, it's a complicated pathway, Mark, but you can figure it out if you put the effort in.
And that's part of the battle right there, is putting in the effort to figure it out and really sit and think and be in touch with yourself. And I know for me, this show, part of the motivation is to hopefully get people to think about things like that. Maybe they haven't started their own business yet, but they've been thinking about it, or they have an idea or a talent, and for whatever reason they're tuning into my show, and I'm hoping to inspire people like that as well to really think about, your own path. Because
Yep.
I got to a point, I left a job that I was at for 10 years, and I knew what I was going to do next, but I also wanted to do something for me. And when I started thinking that way, it really unlocked a lot of doors in my mind and in my life. And it really kind of helped me to where I'm at today. I'm in year 3 of doing this amazing podcast. I've met all these amazing people, and it's been a step, like every step along the way has meant the world to me, just from meeting people who encouraged me to even buy a microphone and start, you know, creating my own content, to
Yep.
now doing this. So, I mean, that self-reflection, that encouragement that you get from others, like, it goes a long way and can really propel you to unlock some of those passions and creativity that you might have just stored away from trying to climb the corporate ladder or whatever you might be doing. And I
Yeah,
think
no, I agree. And
that
I think, no, I think it's good reflection. And so in my reference to all that, what you just mentioned is that it takes courage. We underestimate how much courage plays a part in our pathway of life. And at every testing point along the way, you'll need courage to actually push you through. And I'm not talking about courage of, jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. I'm talking about the courage that requires to make a decision that maybe against what people around you or your influences are telling you shouldn't do. And you need to take courage on your own direction, because ultimately at the end of the day, you don't want to be regretting because you've followed someone else's pathway, which is not fulfilling you. And whatever just, you decide to do, whether it's an entrepreneurial pathway, I think, I look at the journey as a human experience, and you can express that in whatever it is you want. And business for me is my focus is helping business owners evolve and become, better versions of themselves. But really, it's just an expression of the human experience, just like whatever career you're in. And some people get to express it more than others, depending on the role they've got. And I think, if you want to really express yourself, business is a good pathway, because you get to take control of what you do. And of course, you've got to ride the ups and downs that go with that as well. And you mentioned about self-reflection earlier. That's a key part. I often profess to all my clients and the people that listen to me that the number one skill in business is self-awareness, is to understand who you are, how you're reacting to things, how are things impacting you, how are you impacting the people around you, why you're getting the results you're getting, why you're not getting the results you want, is all a process of self-awareness. And so that requires understanding who you are at a deeper level and what's driving you. What are you looking to achieve? And there's no right and wrong to this, or right pathway or wrong pathway. It's really about following your own instincts. And then obviously you pick up skills along the way of what you need to get to where it is you want to get to. But I think, understanding that self-reflection, introspection of why you're getting what you're getting, my key question that I help people evolve through is, why aren't you getting what you say you want? Right. So when you ask yourself that question, why aren't you getting what you say you want? Because our behaviors don't necessarily match what our thoughts of what we're trying to get to. So for instance, if you're trapped in a job that you really want to be doing in a business or getting to business, so why aren't you getting what you say you want? And there's a set of behaviors, belief systems, value systems, a whole lot of stuff that's who you are, that's potentially blocking your pathway to getting there. And when you frame up where you're at through that lens, and potentially seek some help along that pathway. But the starting point is to self-reflect and to understand you are the person driving your own behavior, which ultimately leads to your results or your outcomes or where you're at. So what does that all mean? At the end of the day, it's like one of the things you need to remember is you need to take responsibility for where you're at as well. So if you start blaming everybody else for your position, then you're not now in control of your own destiny. And one of the things psychologically that we all need is we want control of where we're going. That's what most of us like. Not most of us, we all do in some shape or form. And if you're not in control, you get agitated about where you're at. And that sort of creates a whole lot of other behaviors, which then potentially create limiting beliefs, and you don't end up getting to where it is that you say you want to get to. So I can't remember what the question was, Mark, but I think it was actually just more a reflection on, what happens when you're trying to figure out your pathway to get to where it is you want to get to. And if you've got a belief system that you can only stay where you are because that's where your capabilities are, and all it is a limiting belief that's stopping you, and that's self-reflection, understanding what that limiting belief is and why is it holding you back, is a pathway to get to where it is you want to get to.
Well, for one thing, I didn't have a question there. I think you were just bouncing off of me.
Yep.
That was terrific. That's like mic drop. Everything that you said is just wonderful advice. And I mean, a lot of it is not only self-reflection, but it's self-awareness. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, that's one thing that you like. Now, I will say I don't have the courage to jump out of an airplane, but I do have the courage to be self-aware and reflect. And I will say that self-awareness, if you take the time to just listen to yourself and understand where you're at, that can go a long way in helping you to bridge the gap and to go maybe not immediately arrive where you're hoping to
No.
go, but it helps to, I guess, jumpstart you to the next step. And just
Well,
everything that you're saying here is like amazing. So
so
yeah.
let me put this in perspective for you and anybody else that's listening around this topic. So how I view it and how I've come to understand, you know, and I know we've sort of jumped in directly to where I'm at. We missed a little bit of the pathway along to how we got to this part of the conversation, but I think it's important to, now that you've brought it up, that we
I'll
bring
steer
in.
you back.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, the thing that you need to sort of become aware of is that, so your internal operating system, who you are internally, which you need to become self-aware of, which is driven by a couple of different systems within us, is getting your current results now. Like whether you're aware of it or not, your behavior is your actions that you take create behaviors which lead to habits. And it's all driven by who you are internally, what your experience is, your conditioning, your belief systems, your value systems. That's showing up to give you the results you're getting now anyway. The problem that, and you know, and I bring this conversation generally back to a business entrepreneurial pathway, but it applies to anybody who's trying to, you know, get better at whatever it is they're trying to do in their work, or even not necessarily in work, but in any field of endeavor that they're trying to, you know, it could be a sporting person, or it could be someone who's trying to, I don't know, better themselves in a particular hobby they have, is that the current behaviors, actions they take, and the habits they have through their conditioning and their belief system and their value systems is giving them their current results now. Problem is that we don't pay attention to that. And we go looking external of ourselves to what I would call the outer game, you know, and that is, you know, trying to increase the business through more tactics, strategic, you know, sales and marketing method, how we deliver our product or service. And that all these things are external of who we are in our business journey, but you can relate this to whatever else you're doing. And we just look external of ourselves continually to try and get growth to where it is we want to go, or whatever it is we're trying to achieve. To answer that question, why don't I get what I say I want? But when you reflect and start looking internally to who you are and why you're getting your current results, what are the behaviors that are driving? What are the belief systems? Because belief systems drive everything that we do, and they serve a purpose, because otherwise it'd be too hard to stop and think about everything we do. So what we do is we create belief systems that give us frameworks to work within. And that's how we make sense of the world in front of us. And sometimes those belief systems become so rigid because you have a fixed mindset, and then others who are trying to grow have a growth mindset, and those belief systems go, okay, well, maybe I'll test something new to see if this works better for me. So who you are internally is creating your current results anyway. So my thoughts are, well, why don't you actually figure out what's going on internally that's giving you your current results, and then you might be able to engineer that to where it is you say you want to get to. But it's, you know, and so my coaching method is around helping people, is that it's a process of deconstruction first before you reconstruct. Just like if you're going to renovate your bathroom, you wouldn't just go and reconstruct on top of what you already got. You'd have to go pull back all the bits that are not useful, not going to be good for you going forward, and you'll end up back with a basic structure, the framework, you know, the hole in the ground, the water that comes out of the wall, all those things. So deconstructing yourself is very similar. Let's get it back to the things that are foundational, and then you can start building on that, which is the reconstruction process. Put the new tiles in, put the new tapware in, put the new glass frame around the shower thing, you know, paint the walls, make it look like a better version of the bathroom that you had, which is reconstructing of your own life. So I think, so the message here is that most business owners and most people in life in general ignore the internal operating system, which is creating their current results, and they look external of themselves to try and achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. And at some point, that doesn't work for you. It doesn't end up getting to you where it is. And even if you make lots of money and you build a great business, it doesn't necessarily make you fulfilled, because you're now potentially working, you know, 80 hours a week trying to drive a business that you're making lots of money, but you're so attached to it, your identity is not separate, that you get stuck in that place as well. So there's lots of challenges, but I think all the answers to what it is you're trying to achieve lie within you. And we've heard this from many gurus for thousands of years, not hundreds of years. We're going back to the Stoic philosophers who were telling us this, but we weren't paying attention, or not a lot of us were. Some of us were. So the overarching message to what I'm saying here is that your internal operating system, and I can go into that a bit more if we want, is delivering your current results anyway. So problem is most of us are ignoring that and looking external for how do I get the next operational tactic, sales, marketing, how do I get the widget that's going to take me, how do I get the next latest bit of technology? The one thing you can't outsource in the current world is your own mindset or how you think about yourself and where you're at. That's pretty much everything now we can outsource to someone else to do, but you can't outsource someone to run your internal operating system. You need to run that.
Well, speaking of not outsourcing and running your own life, let's get back to the video rental, like the post video rental part of your journey.
Yep.
And hopefully that was a good segue into that. Where did you go from there? What was next? How did you build yourself up to where you are now, which is incredibly wise?
Cool. Thanks for that. Good question. So yeah, I think within a short period of time after I started my business journey, I moved away from video library, as I said, because we felt that the writing was on the wall that wasn't going to be a sustainable long-term business. And so again, I just got into that restless stage where I was looking for what was going to be the next business for me. And I went through a period of 6 or 7 years where I was buying, selling, starting, sort of trying to find my way. And I think I ended up going through about 5 or 6 different enterprises until I landed in the real estate business. And so I picked up a lot of skills on sales and how to present myself, how to connect with people, how to provide customer service, all that. And then, and I had an interest in real estate from an investment perspective. And, I was buying and selling property and flipping and doing all that sort of stuff just to try and get ahead. And then in, I think it's 2000, so early 2000, I landed up in real estate. At the same time, I had another business that was going, just a small retail business. And I quickly figured out that maybe real estate is my pathway going forward. So I started that in 2000. Within the space of 6 years, I'd got myself to a position where I started my own company in real estate. So essentially as a real estate agent working, selling property. And I started off selling residential, but then within the period of time of 5 years, I ended up drifting more towards commercial property. And I enjoyed that aspect of developing property and selling. So when I started my own company in 2007, we were doing commercial development, sales and leasing. And then the reckoning part of my business life came in 2008 with the global financial crisis, where, so in 2008, I was 44 years of age. I thought I had it all sorted out and things were going pretty well. And from the outside looking in, it looked like we were doing very well, which we were. But I went into because I hadn't had this amount of wisdom back then, I wasn't prepared for the global financial crisis and probably was a little bit removed. And now I understand I went into a denial phase around it all. And so, yeah, that was interesting for me to observe my own human behavior, conditioning, belief systems around all that. So I ended up, for a period of 2 to 3 years, really struggled. And, the way I reflect on it, I lost a lot of zeros and didn't go bankrupt, but, was really a struggle. I managed to keep the family home, managed to keep the business going, although it was tough through those 2 to 3 years. And that was the time that I started to get interested in human behavior. And it was really out of trying to figure out, why did I get myself in that position? How did this happen? What didn't I see? What was I ignoring? That led me to get interested in maybe it's me and not the outside world that's the problem here. And because you can get into the blame game very easy, particularly when you've got a global financial crisis, that you can blame everything external of who you are. And as I reflected before, what I've come to learn now and what I like to share with people is to understand is that, you're the captain of your destiny. And although there might be external circumstances that are happening around you, you can still make choices that will take you on the right pathway when you know to look internally versus looking externally. So I went through this period of time of looking internally. And as I started to learn more about human behavior, I started to change things the way I was doing it. My belief system started to evolve about what I was capable of doing, what I might be able to achieve. And then I became obsessed about learning about it. So I then became an academic in that I read lots of books. I listened to audiobooks. I did a lot of courses. I took coaching. And so instead of doing the academic work at the start of my life journey I decided to put 20 years of, at that stage, 20 odd years of experience first, and then go and try and figure this out, right? So most people do it the other way around, but I did it after life experience. And in some ways, when I started to study human behavior and psychology of why we get what we get, and, and then that's led to me, understanding neurobiology, neuropsychology, everything that has helped me now and help other people. It was an interesting journey that I just became obsessed with learning about it. And that created some really exponential growth in where I was at. So the business now, and I still have the real estate company. So fast forward 11 years of growing that, I'm now, 3 times potentially more better off than I was prior to the global financial crisis, but in a much more stable way. I now have a real estate company that, with the help of a great team, I don't need to be involved as much as I used to be. And that's given me the space now the last 4 years to create a coaching enterprise, which I've been, again, a human experience in the first couple of years of me understanding whether I could package this all up and help other people evolve to get to where it is they're getting. So now I'm, 57, going on 58, 33 years of experience in business, 11 odd years of studying human behavior, applying that now in my workshops and how I help people one-on-one through what I call Attergy Coaching Systems. And Attergy is a made-up word of attitude and energy pulled together, which I think are the foundational blocks to doing anything. So that's the sort of a snapshot of about 20 odd years of of growth and development for me. And look, Mark, we started off the conversation talking about, doing what you're passionate about. I'm now doing what I'm passionate about. It's taken me, an interesting journey to get here. Financially, I'm sound. I don't have to worry about where the next dollar's coming from. I'm now getting to spend my days, talking to people like you on the other side of the planet, which is always fun and interesting. I couldn't be further away from you geographically. I'm in the southwest corner of Australia, and But with the modern technology, I can, help people anywhere on the planet who wants to listen to the message. And I think it's, the core message I now help people with is just evolving themselves to understand your internal operating. I'll go back to that. The internal operating system is driving everything you do. That's getting your current results. If you're not happy with where you're at and you're not getting what you want to get out of your business life, whatever that may be, then you need to explore what's happening internally that's creating this. And it's not for everybody, because it can be a little bit confronting, facing the self-awareness. But I can promise you that it's the pathway to go to where it is that you want to get to. And I think, again, so the people I help now are generally business leaders who are running organizations of, 10 people up to 100 people. And one of the biggest challenges for any medium-sized business of that size is people problems, because you've got people around you, you've got to manage people, you've got to manage yourself, you've got to lead yourself, lead your team. And so the work I've done around understanding human behavior puts me, and also having the business experience of building and, driving businesses, I'm particularly interested in is where, right now I'm going deep on neuroscience and neurobiology on how that's impacting who we are to give us the results that we're getting, and maybe why aren't we getting what we say we want, which is the overarching question that we need to all ask. So that's a snapshot for the last 20 odd years.
Well, thank you for sharing that snapshot. That's quite a lengthy snapshot, but I mean, look, I think you said a lot of good things there, and it kind of is a reflection of what I want people to see when they listen to each episode, because here you are, you went right into the working world, you found your way into entrepreneurship, and then after that, you found something to not only take your experience as an entrepreneur and also mixing in with that passion that you develop for human behavior, and you were able to combine the two, and you wound up going back to school many years after a lot of us had put university or college behind us, which I'll say that I've been thinking a lot about going back to college over the past like year or so, especially since I moved here. And it made me think about what would be different about me being a student today. And I'm going to kind of ask you that question, kind of going back. Here you are, you've had all that success, and you didn't necessarily need to go back to school, but you developed
No.
that passion and you wanted to grow in that area, and you did it. And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what was that like for you to go back to school after all that experience compared to how it might have been if you had gone like 18, 19,
Yeah.
20 years old?
It's a really, really, really good question, Mark. And I think the answer is that it's probably different for everybody depending on, their life journey, their experience, their stability in their life. Because I think that, if you've got a situation where you've got a burning need to provide food and money for a family or whatever it is, it's hard to make that decision to go, okay, well, I'm just going to, throw it all in. And what I'm doing here, and I'm going to go back to school for a year or two or whatever it is, and for me, I didn't actually drop any of that. I just had the desire and the want to learn more so that I can improve my own situation for my own family. Because what was driving me at the core, which I've come to understand, is I got, had two daughters, a wife, mortgages, and I wanted to provide a life for them, which this becomes down to self-awareness. What actually is driving you at the core that makes you do what you're doing or not doing what you're doing? And so if you've got a purpose or something outside of who you are, that's always a good motivation driver. But even if you're just trying to improve yourself and you have a growth mindset, because this is an important part of it, is that you either got a fixed mindset belief system that says this is where I'm at in life and I'm not going to be able to achieve anymore, or you potentially have got a growth mindset that goes, well, I'm agitated with where I'm at. I know I can do more. I just need to figure out a pathway how to do it. And so one will keep you stuck and the other one will help you keep on growing. So what actually happens is your belief system starts to shift, because we don't dramatically change our belief systems, 180 degrees. We go, okay, well, I'm on this pathway. I'm just going to flip that now. And now I believe I can do this. What happens is that we incrementally shift our belief systems bit by bit, and how we do that with new evidence. So when we get new evidence of, oh, maybe I can do this. And, so going back to university, which is a way to get to your answer to your question, is if you have a goal in mind that you want to achieve by going back to university or school or get some coaching or whatever it is, which aligns with your goal, then you will do the work to put in. One of the problems with goal setting is that unless our belief system is aligned with our goal, and we don't actually believe we can achieve this at an unconscious, subconscious level, not necessarily at a conscious thinking level, what will happen is along the way, you'll self-sabotage yourself to stop you getting the goal that you're setting out to be. And what it is that your belief system isn't aligned with your goal. So that comes back to, why do you want to go back to university? What is it you're hoping to achieve out of it? What's the goal? Because if it's generally just well, I like to do it because I've got nothing else better to do, and I just want to improve myself, most likely along the way, you'll self-sabotage yourself unconsciously. I'm not saying that you go out and specifically do it, but this is human behavior. This is what happens. Our conditioning kicks in, and there's all these other reasons. But when you've got a firm vision of why you're doing what you're doing and where is it going to take you and how is it going to improve your life, and you set that goal, you need signposts along the way to show that you're heading in that direction. And that's the incremental shifts in your belief system, which you thought maybe going back to school, I'm not going to be able to achieve the results I can. Well, let's just get yourself qualified first, or at least enough competency to even get in, right? So that's the first goal. And do you believe you can do that? Yes. Okay. Well, let's try that. As opposed to, I want to go out to school for 6 years to become a heart surgeon and cure heart disease, right? So that's a lofty goal, which the first step is to go and do some study around that. But if your belief system isn't tied in with that end goal, you'll self-sabotage yourself along the way to achieve that. I know that's an extreme, but or it might be, I want to leave my job that I've been working in for 20 years and I want to go and I've got passion to have my own career, my own entrepreneurial pathway. And I want to create an enterprise with 50 people and, I want to make millions of dollars. So that's the lofty goal. But if your belief system isn't aligned with that based on, the evidence that you got for your current capacity and capabilities, the neuroscience is telling us that your internal operating system will find ways of self-sabotaging that along the way, which is the reason why people don't end up getting the goals they want. So it's a reverse engineering process. So going back to your question, for me, because I said it's different for everybody, but that was just a bit of a background to why is it you want to do it? How is it aligned with your goals? And what needs to shift alongside you just going back to study? So for me, the advantage I think you have by going back and study after you've had experience in 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be, is that you now start to take on the knowledge that you need to take in or you need to learn through a much different lens, through a life experience lens. So when I'm talking about human behavior and why we get what we get and why we don't get, I can draw back on 15 years, 20 years of experience of, yep, that's true. That's what happened to me. I turned left when I should have turned right. Why did I do that? Well, because of maybe the emotional drivers that were going on in my life at the time. And so you've got an experience to draw on. Whereas if you go into academia at the age of 18, 19, and the only experience you got is your previous schooling years, you don't really have any other life experience. So in some ways, it's actually, I think, beneficial, and you can fast track your learning a lot quicker. But as I said, human behavior is what it is. Your conditioning process is already well entrenched. You need to be very self-aware of how are you getting your current goals? Are you fulfilling what you're getting? And is your goal that you're trying to achieve compelling enough for you to do the work that needs to be doing? And I think that what I've learned is that when you got your belief system aligned with your goals, then you'll do what it takes to get to achieve that goal. But the moment it's not, and that could be all sorts of different factors, you'll find ways of not fulfilling. And, we call this, self-sabotage, or you then create limiting beliefs that stop you getting to where it is you want to get to. So I would encourage you, if you've got a strong enough goal, not just you, Mark, but anybody, to follow that passion, if that's what, and providing that you've got other parts of your life stable, i.e. financial security, because our neurobiology is built on safety first. So we'll always default to that place, which is another rabbit hole we can go down if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would love to follow my passion and continue this conversation for another hour, because these are all topics that I know I love to think about internally. And when I have a guest like you who specializes in some of these thought processes and topics, I'm just like, man, I could go for 2-3 hours on this, but we can't do that because we are
no, of course, we're limited with time. But no, happy to have explore that with you further individually and just as a conversational piece for others, because there'll be other people that are in the same situation that feel, and I think, what happens is you end up feeling trapped in where you're at. And so this comes back to what I mentioned earlier, is that, courage is a testing point of these things, is that you need some level of courage to push through. And go back just quickly, is that neurobiology built on safety. It's trying to keep us safe. What does that do? Creates fear around the unknown. And then our psychology starts to take that fear and take it to a place that's not necessarily real. So the antidote to fear is courage. And so at the core of every business entrepreneurial pathway, there's a level of courage that's required to push through the limiting barriers that will take you to, and that could show up in your life in whatever that is. But there's a great quote, I think it's C.S. Lewis, which was a famous American author going back, or philosopher, and I'll probably butcher this quote, but off the top of my head, it's that courage is not merely one of the virtues, but it's the virtue that's at the testing point of every other virtue. So in other words, I think the essence of it, what he's saying is that all our value systems or our virtues have a testing point from time to time, and courage is required to push you through when you're up against that testing point. And so if you look at life through that we are always getting tested, there's always a challenge that we need to break through. Our neurobiology says that our safety driver will come in at some point and try and keep us safe. And because that's built on millions of years of evolution, when we had different worries about what was going to keep us safe and not, but that still part of our brain is very active. And so that creates a safety mechanism, which leads to fear. And a way to push through fear is having courage. And so I could talk to you about courage for hours if you want to one day, Mark, but it forms the basis of a lot of things of why we achieve what we achieve and why we don't achieve what we want to achieve.
Well, what I want to achieve in the moment is for you to tell the audience how they can find you, how they can work with you, and anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. Well, look, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm there, 2 or 3 times a week, posting stuff and just as a way of sharing some information, some knowledge, and some wisdom. And it's evolving all the time because I'm also on a growth learning journey. So I think what I've come to understand about myself is that, and one of my own quotes that I've developed is that whatever you learn today is only preparing you for what you need to learn tomorrow. And that holds you in good stead in that you're in a growth pathway all the time. So I'm always sharing what's going on in my world. So that's a good way to connect. So just connect with, I don't think there's too many Torrin Minutillos on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me. Also on my website, which is getting revamped at the moment, attergy.com. So it's pretty straightforward, attergy.com. I do offer a complimentary copy of a book that I wrote about it's probably 18 months ago now, May 2021. And that's just 10 guiding principles on to help you structure yourself as an entrepreneur, mainly mindset driven, but there's also some tactical strategic stuff in there. And it's just a very short 100-odd page read. And it's really been set up to each individual principle has its, its own little message. So you can go back to it and just read one of the principles that take your fancy. And that's complimentary on my website. All you need to do is go on there, put some details in, and I'll put that in a post to you. It's a real book. It's not a PDF that I'll send you on a link. Put that at the post to you. So happy to connect, and that's a good pathway for me to meet new people and just sort of help people on their journey as much as I can. That's what I'm focused about doing. And I've got, I do one-on-one coaching, but I'm also building some new workshops at the moment, actually, around conversion and connection, which connection forms a main part of us trying to build businesses. So there are a couple of things of reach out, say hello. Happy to talk to anybody who is interested in this sort of stuff to help them on their journey, and you never know where it might lead to.
Well, Torrin, thank you so much for being on Mark My Words. I hate using the word delightful, but in all honesty, this was a very delightful conversation. I really enjoyed listening to you and talking to you about all these topics, and I appreciate your time. And for anybody listening out there who feels like they need a little more self-reflection and self-awareness, I can't think of too many people better to talk to than Torrin Minutillo, think I'm getting that right.
You got it.
Shakes
Spot
his
on.
head.
Spot on.
Spot on. Perfect. Well, Torrin Minutillo of Attergy, Attitude plus Energy, which is a great name, by the way. Thank you for being on Mark My Words. I am Mark Schmidt, and I will see you soon with the new episode. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to listen to Mark My Words. If you would like to connect with me beyond the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt, where I will be talking about entrepreneurship, careers, and anything else that is on my mind. You can also connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at Nimrod1979 and Nimrod79 respectively. This podcast also has a page on Instagram at Mark My Words. And finally, if you want to leave me a voicemail or check out what I'm up to with the podcast, come find me at podpage.com/mark-my-words. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with a new episode soon. Bye for now.